Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Ask the Expert sessions on Linux and PowerShell and on Azure. Excuse me. First, I want to start off by introducing everyone that we have here today. My name is Joey Aiello, and I'm a program manager on the PowerShell team. Jeffrey, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
I'm Jeffrey Snover, Microsoft Technical Fellow and the CTO for our modern workplace transformation efforts, and the guy who doesn't know how to unmute his mic.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Jeffrey. Stuart.
Good evening, good morning. Stuart Kirk here. As you can see from the background as appropriate, I am part of the Black Belt team focusing on cloud native applications, as well as Azure Red Hat OpenShift and anything based on Linux infrastructure. Happy to be here.
Thanks so much. Glad to have you here. Danny?
Hey folks, Danny Martins. I am also a program manager on the PowerShell team. I'm responsible for both Win32 OpenSSH as well as Azure Cloud Shell.
And Jason.
Hey everyone, I'm Jason Helmick. I'm a program manager on the PowerShell team, spending most of my time thinking about shell improvements.
Thank you so much, everyone. Glad to have everybody here. So first things first, just get some housekeeping out of the way. We're going to have the chat Q&A available for asking questions. Questions will appear to all the attendees once they're published by a moderator. And then after that, folks, you can vote on the questions that you would like to rise to the top to ask our experts here today. Experts will answer these questions verbally as well as over the chat based on the moderator here. So you'll see some of those replies in line with the questions, some of them answered here. And we will provide some resources once the session is over so that you can follow up and learn more. As an FYI, this session may be recorded. Please help our moderators by withholding from spamming the chat with things that are not serious questions, and please adhere to the Microsoft Code of Conduct, which has been posted as a question already for your reading pleasure. Here is that as well. I'm assuming you can all speed read, which is great. And apologies, of course, doing this one out of order. We've met our experts, so of course we can get right into it. Awesome. So our first question, let's see here what we've got queued up.
Oh, we're missing Jason.
Are we?
In the picture.
Oh, yes, we are
okay.
missing Jason. You're absolutely right. Fortunately, he was able to introduce himself here. So first thing first, I can throw one over here to some folks, given that we're just getting started here. Again, please post your questions. I will pose this one to Jeffrey. Jeffrey, we recently launched PowerShell 7. Why are you excited about the launch of PowerShell 7 or 7.1 that's coming out later in November?
Yeah, that's an easy one. Basically there's two things that I'm most excited about. So first is PowerShell 7 is PowerShell 7. So it's not Windows PowerShell, it's not PowerShell Core, it's PowerShell 7. And so what does that mean? And the answer is it can run everywhere, right? And this is really the no compromise tools. We did a ton of work to refactor everything to get on .NET Core so we could go everywhere. But the reality is that in the refactoring, some of the things got left behind. PowerShell 7 picks up those things. And then the other thing I'm wildly excited about is really just the fit and finish of the product. There's so many little features that just work better. It's just so much faster. I mean, it just has I don't know but it just has a better feel to it. Those are the things I like. And yeah, there's a lot of great features, but it's the little things. It's the quantity of little things that I get excited about.
Yeah, absolutely, and major shout out to our community for a lot of those contributions in the long tail that have absolutely made PowerShell 7 just that much better than Windows PowerShell. I know I feel kind of a little bit like I'm playing with one hand tied behind my back kind of thing when I use Windows PowerShell. There's really this sense that something's missing there once you've really used 7. So
and have
awesome.
you noticed that you use 7 and then you go back and you notice how verbose the error messages used to be?
Oh, that's definitely one. Yeah, for me it's always some weird JSON bug or REST bug or something like that. But yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeffrey. So we've got another one here actually that I'm gonna pose to Stuart. So there's a question about, oh, excuse me, no. So this was Ubuntu 2004. I jumped the gun. So this was actually about when can we expect PowerShell 7 to have Ubuntu 2004 support? And I can actually take that one very briefly, which is very, very soon. You should expect that with the release of 7.1. We know that Ubuntu 2004 is definitely, you know, the next mainline release here. And so, you know, today I think the 1804 version actually works as you'd expect, but you can expect to see that showing up on packages.microsoft.com for the 2004 release. Awesome. Stuart, I want to pop one over to you though. Still, what are some of the latest improvements with Linux on Azure, and why is Azure such a phenomenal cloud platform to be running Linux?
Well, you know, one of the things that I have learned after joining Microsoft, and I've been here for, you know, a little over 4 years, so I'm, you know, still a newbie compared to a lot of folks that have been here for a while and, you know, recognize the old Microsoft. And, you know, one of the things that I'm really excited about is the fact that our development and engineering teams actually take strong input from the field, whether it's the Microsoft field or our customer field or our partner field, on how to improve our product. And the direction and roadmap that they set for their priorities is actually driven by those requests. And that is the true nature of open source. In terms of the actual Linux on Azure, I mean, it has matured so much since I started here. Originally, there were images that you could deploy, and you would have a simple slash partition, and any sysadmin worth his or her salt is going to sit there and say, what the heck is this? And so, you know, we've introduced LVM-based images, which is really cool to allow for a lot of flexibility. There's also bring your own license images for, I think, Red Hat and SUSE and a number of different options. Partnerships that we have also with our ISVs, like Red Hat, for example, just very, very strong partnerships in terms of not only Linux development, but stuff like Azure Red Hat OpenShift. So just an across the board adoption and embracement of Linux. It's just really exciting, and it makes me so happy that I'm an employee here.
Awesome, thank you so much. Yeah, I gotta check some of that stuff out. Although that you know, I don't have my own Red Hat license, unfortunately, to bring to the table. Although that's I'm sure that's gonna be huge for people. So we've got another question here about if there are any plans to transform SSH connections default way to PS remote. So I think Danny, you have a pretty good grasp here on the situation with SSH. I'd say, can you give us a little more info on that?
Yeah, for sure. So I'd say starting it with, I'd say the old way of PowerShell remoting that's more legacy was over WSMan, and moving forward into the future with both with PowerShell 7, we're moving to more of an SSH-based remoting. And so definitely SSH is being used as the default PS remoting tool in PowerShell going forward. OpenSSH is what is currently supported, and what we're looking at for future investments.
And can I do any of that today with Cloud Shell?
Yeah, for sure. So in Cloud Shell, we already have PowerShell 7. It's running in a Linux container, and you're easily able to SSH into whatever you like.
That's awesome. Yeah. And for those that have not yet tried out Azure Cloud Shell within the Azure portal, it is just a fantastic tool for having all of your tools, whether it's PowerShell or if you're, you know, one of these Bash folks, you know, you still have got all the tools you need, and you know, get all your work done right there in an automatically authenticated Azure environment. So really exciting stuff. Yep. So this was answered in the chat partially here. But what was the difference between PowerShell 7 versus the older versions? And given, Jason, that you've done some of the latest shell improvements in PowerShell 7, can you speak to some of the improvements that we've got coming around the corner in 7.1?
Sure. Some of the improvements that we have coming around really are kind of very exciting. So if you've been working with PowerShell, you know that tab completion has saved you some typing. And if you're like me, it's certainly saved you from your own spelling. It's kind of accelerated you to be able to get to your end state, your successful solution faster. Well, we have some newer solutions around that we're building onto that to see if we can assist that a little bit further. One of the things that we're coming out with is predictive IntelliSense. And if you see the Unplugged with Jeffrey and I, you get a chance to see it there. That's where when you start typing, you'll see a faint line, and that line comes from your history. And so what we look forward to in getting out in something in 7.1 is where you can start to type, and if it matches something from your history, it'll be displayed, and you can accept that. Not only does that make it quicker for you to, well, sure, just accept that, and I reduce some typing keystrokes. But a lot of us have been using this and working with this quite a bit, and it's more than just an acceleration. If you start to use it, you can start to plan to use it. Like when I get up in the morning and I need to sync some of my Git repos and get stuff all ready for work, I planned for that. In other words, I just start typing the initial characters, accept those long lines, and it's almost like my faster self-automation to myself. It's interesting. So we look forward to doing things like that.
And then Jason, so what's the scope of the history? Does it just this session, or is it previous sessions as well?
Oh, that's a great question, because I know if you worked with previous version, the older versions of PowerShell, and you were really a big fan of checking your history and things like that, the PowerShell history that you had was only for that session that you were in. But now with PS Readline, we have PS Readline's history, which means all of the sessions that you've done, that history is always there for you. And this is one of the best parts about it, because I plan to reuse my history for those commands that I forgot already today. In other words, I know that I'm not doing the same thing again for a couple of weeks, but I'm not writing it down. I'm not worried about forgetting it because I know that it's in my history now.
Yeah, very cool.
So there's a number of questions here actually about, sort of coming from Linux admins about, hey, why, what are sort of the benefits of using PowerShell? And if I'm interested in learning PowerShell, how can I get started? So for the first half, Jeffrey, given that you are the, the inventor of PowerShell here, can you tell us sort of about some of the fundamental differences between Bash and PowerShell and why someone might prefer PowerShell over the other?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, if you're from Linux, right, Unix, shell's just a shell is just a shell, right? There's C shell, there's Z shell, there's a bunch of shells. So in this regard, PowerShell is just another shell, and so you should try it, right? And it's got a lot going for it. One of the key things it has going for it is that we intentionally designed it to be interactive, to support sort of admin scripting, which is to say quick and dirty hackups scripting, and then also to go to various click stops on levels to formality, all with the same tool. So, in the past, if you invested in your shell tool, but then you needed some serious automation, well, it didn't help you. You had to go rewrite that in Python or C# or say C++ or whatever. And so then the other thing we did was we really designed this for production environments. Okay, so what's that mean? That means if you're ever doing something that has a side effect on the system, the commandlets will support minus verbose, shows you what actually happened, minus confirm, says, oh, would you like to do this? Yes, no, yes to all, no to all, or what if? And it'll tell you what it could have done, but then doesn't do it for you. And so those are the key benefits. Again, just another shell. It can launch any commands just like you're used to. However, we focus in on high-level task-oriented abstractions with a verb-noun syntax, a single parser, so that there's none of these variations. And we prefer more verbose feedback, because when it's 3 a.m. in the morning and something's gone wrong and you open up a script, seeing some gnarly, horrible regular expression trying to parse text and you're crossing your fingers, you know what I'm talking about, is difficult, right? When it really matters. And being able to open it up and say, oh, here's what's going on. Verbosity is your friend at that point. By the way, a lot of people get this wrong. Verbosity, yeah, it's great. You should do verbosity for your production scripts. But when you're just going quick, we got aliases. It can be as pithy and as opaque as the best of the Linux shells.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. And that's just barely scratching the surface. For those of you that sound intrigued by that, there's some great resources that got responded to here privately in the Q&A, but also I can highly recommend books like PowerShell in a Month of Lunches, which recently released a 3rd edition based on Mac OS and Linux, as well as excellent module that's much loved by our community called PS Koans. That's Koans. It's sort of an interactive module that lets you sort of walk through how to get started with PowerShell and where some of the more interesting features lie.
Well, can I add two more things? So first,
yeah, of course.
Jason and I did a PowerShell, what do we call it? PowerShell Jumpstart a few years ago. PowerShell version 3, completely useful today, whether you're Windows or Linux. You know, it has the core concepts. And that's the thing about PowerShell. It's the core concepts. By the way, the other thing is PowerShell is PowerShell. So, you know, when I was a Unix guy and then I went to VMS and I tried to learn DCL, I freaking hated it. It's like, because I was struggling because I kept trying to treat it like it was C shell, and it wasn't C shell, it was DCL. And so when I stopped like being pissed off that it wasn't what I was used to, and then just said, what is this tool? I found out I loved it. You got to do the same thing. You know, so when you try PowerShell, don't get pissed off that it's not Bash. If you want to Bash, use Bash. So stop, learn some of the things. You'll find there's a few key principles, and then you'll learn those things, and then you'll be able to guess, and you'll be right, and you'll love it. So that's one of the key things. So that's one scenario. And the other thing, as much as we've spent the last 30 years convincing you that it's a waste of your time to read the help, read the help. The help's actually pretty good. I mean, it's a shocker, but it is.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for those additions, Jeffrey. It definitely can only +1 all of the things he just said. That's is a great way to get going on PowerShell. So Stuart, I'm going to throw this one over to you as somebody that's sort of, you know, recently, I would say recently, air quotes here, you're saying relative to your colleagues, joined Microsoft and has sort of seen this transition to a very Linux-friendly world. This question here is basically, hey, do you think a Windows system engineer who works with Azure should also get some level of Linux knowledge? And if so, what level would be a minimum? This person is trying to convince their team members to invest some time and effort to Linux, if only to understand our Linux colleagues better.
Yeah, that's an awesome question. And I mean, diversity is a good thing, right? And so, you know, as much as, you know, back in the day, you know, Linux versus Windows, kind of like cats and dogs. I mean, that's not the same, you know, view anymore. I think it's important for people to have a at least high level view of different operating systems and platforms that are part of the Azure portfolio, for sure. One thing that I created kind of for my teammates, or helped create back in, I think it was FY17, was a guide for helping people obtain their Linux LFCS. So that's the Linux Foundation Certified System Administrator. So Linux Foundation is a third-party kind of neutral, like Switzerland organization that promotes all things Linux, external to the company and external to any Linux distribution. And then they have certification programs, one of which, like I said, is the Linux Foundation Certified System Admin. That's a great place to start. And it definitely allows you to be comfortable with your hands on the keyboard and doing basic file manipulation and redirection and how services work. And so kind of the core stuff that you would know on the Windows side of the house, you know, going into different services and, you know, scheduled tasks and things of that nature helps you really understand that. So I would say that would be a great place to start. And I applaud who is ever asking this question that wants to kind of diversify. Feel free to reach out to me personally, because I would definitely have no problem promoting and talking about that. So that's a great question.
Yeah, it is. By the way, can I also say, you know, these days of like Windows versus Linux, oh, my OS is better than your OS, those are just not interesting conversations. And if you're having those conversations, you should stop. If your colleagues are having those conversations, you should tell them to stop. You know, as someone once said, who cares whether the cat is white or black, as long as it catches the mouse? These are both great operating systems. They are different. Some things, you know, like motorcycles, right? Some are great in the straightaways, other are great in the curves. So it depends upon the track you're going. It depends on which motorcycle and which OS you want to do. They're both great.
Yeah, absolutely. And can only echo that. That really is a great question. I can definitely say, as somebody who has used Linux extensively in the past, you know, I'm a big fan of Bash. You know, there are many great reasons to use PowerShell, but you can only better yourself in your career by adding more skills and knowledge of more systems to your repertoire. We're living in a very mixed, heterogeneous world where, you know, having these skills are only going to help you as things grow more and more complex and heterogeneous. So Got a question here that's a little more targeted. So are there plans to update SCOM to use PowerShell 7? I don't know who asked this one, but feel free to reach out to me. I do not know of any current plans to update SCOM to use PowerShell 7, but this is not to say that it's not something we can look into. I'd love to understand the scenario more and kind of see what it is that you need there, so that we can reach out to that team. And on a more general note, we do work hand in hand with lots and lots and lots of PowerShell product teams. The best thing you can always do if you've got a problem with a module or a product's PowerShell integration is to file issues with that product team. So go to their user voice, go to the Windows Feedback Hub, go to their GitHubs and get up repos and file issues. But you can also find me, Danny, Jason, Steve Lee, any of us on Twitter, and we're also more than happy to sort of reach out to those teams and represent that feedback on your behalf. And we work hand in hand with a lot of teams to guide sort of their best practices for integrating with PowerShell. Awesome. Excuse me, just scanning here a little bit. So there's another one here, a little more targeted as well. Are there any plans to bring Azure automation up to PowerShell 7? Same sort of thing. We don't have any concrete plans for that today. It's something that has been discussed, but would love to understand kind of the use case a little better, so that we can sort of reach out to that team and represent that position on your behalf.
Yeah, well, it's a great point to take to describe how sort of the new Microsoft, right? So as Stuart was saying, we're just so focused in on customer and customer feedback, and again, there's so much feedback. We got to pare it down. What? Every team is looking there saying, hey, I have so many developers, I got a backlog like this. How should I spend my developer resources to maximize customer value? Okay, and you have to make trade-offs. So all these questions about, hey, when is this team going to use PowerShell 7 or not? Basically, if they're trying to figure out what's the value of that to their customer base. So you should go tell them. If you think it's valuable, go tell them. If we tell them, they're going to be like, hey, you're not my customer. They're my customer. So I'm going to wait till I hear it from them to decide what to do or decide what the priority is. And in general, these conversations work best when you say, here's the scenario I have, or here's the problem I have, or here's the benefit I'm looking for. So one of the big benefits of PowerShell 7, of course, is speed, the fact that it can run everywhere, the fact that it's copy deployable, the fact that it works so well with Visual Studio Code. You figure out what the value proposition you're looking for and then communicate it to that team. It will be at least 10 times more powerful than if I go do it or Joey or any of us go give exactly the same feedback.
Absolutely. So a little quick one for Jason, and then I'll give you a follow-up after that. So when are we going to get a reboot of the PowerShell Jumpstart series?
Oh, that's a great question. So Jeffrey and I have talked about this, and we continue to talk about it. First of all, Jeffrey just said this a few minutes ago. That original series that we did is still 80% rock solid. Those are the fundamentals, and it's a difficult thing to want to try to just sit down and redo that. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So Jeffrey and I are trying to find the best way for us to talk about PowerShell that you can utilize today. It's cross-management capabilities. You see some of that we talked about in the Unplugged, because those are the things that you can utilize today that a lot of people, they seem to forget or they didn't realize were capabilities that PowerShell has. It is truly magical, some of these capabilities, and maybe that's why it seems that they couldn't possibly exist. But these are the kind of things that you do from day to day for management, and we want you to know that those capabilities are there. So we'll find some way to do something, because we have a great time doing those. Now here comes Jeffrey.
You're going to talk about notebooks? No, okay. Anyway, we have some. Honestly, we were planning to do it, and then we saw, oh my God, here's a great way to do it. But the technology wasn't quite there yet. Basically, I'm just a huge fan of notebooks. I mentioned it in the talk. Notebooks. I think notebooks are going to transform the experience of learning, transform the experience of training, and yeah, I won't say any more.
Awesome. So as a quick follow-up, Jason, there was a question here about the terminal. specifically the new Windows terminal, which I know you have played with pretty extensively. Do you think that the latest Windows terminal will help Bash and PowerShell fans work together, filling in the gaps between different terminals and communities users?
Well, I think that's a great question. And isn't it a wonderful day? I mean, isn't it a wonderful day when the conversation is, do you think this will help make it better so that we can all get along easier? And the answer to the question is, in my opinion, absolutely. And I think if you watch the Unplug, you really get to see it's a really quick snapshot of Jeffrey basically schooling me on Windows Terminal. And it is really cool. And it actually gives you a lot of capabilities that may actually help you in doing your job. In other words, at first you might look at split pane and go, I don't really get the point, but try it. And so use the multiple tabs, use the multiple panes, put a GIF of something waving at you in the background. I have PowerShell waving at me. Yes, I agree that it would be.
You have to say that with Windows Terminal, I mean, early days of PowerShell, people used to throw rocks at it because it didn't have tabbed windows, and Linux Terminal was so much better, and they thought, well, that's Bash. And of course it wasn't, it was Terminal versus console.exe. And now we've got a great, terminal editor. We have WSL. So now, here's the joke, but it's so true. The year of the Linux desktop is upon us, and it's called Windows. I mean, really, you're a Linux developer. Windows is a freaking awesome place to do it with WSL, Windows Terminal. It is fantastic to do Linux development on. Really is.
And just to pivot over to Stuart a little bit, Stuart, do you in your day-to-day use any Windows on your daily drivers? Have you played with the Windows Terminal or WSL, and can you speak to some of the some of the benefits there?
Yeah, absolutely. I do use Windows services for Linux, and it's a great place to start. I do a lot of deeper integration work with Azure, and so what I typically do is actually run Hyper-V-based virtual machines locally with things like Fedora and RHEL and whatnot on it, so that I can have like the full-blown OS locally. So if I'm traveling and whatnot, I have access to everything. But the integration that's going on from a kernel perspective and baking it into the operating system, it just makes it such an easy extension of that Windows desktop environment. And was just said, having your Linux desktop is now a Windows desktop, and I'm just kind of sitting here going, oh gosh, back in the day, that never would have been said. But I mean, it's true. It's a true story, and with all of the integrations that we have, like with Visual Studio and whatnot now, it's a great place to work.
And the one thing we didn't get to demo in our Unplugged session is Linux containers running on Windows. And in particular, Danny, you want to talk about Cloud Shell in a container? That's what we were going to show. Cloud Shell is so wonderful because it has all the latest and greatest tools. And now, Danny.
Yeah, so Cloud Shell has all the latest, greatest tools. The container is now available open sourced. And I can say the last kind of big thing of what's new is you can now run Cloud Shell to connect to any virtual networks that you have. And so think about it, you can go into the Azure portal, you can open up Cloud Shell, it has all these standard command line tools used for management, and then you can manage resources that might not even have any public facing endpoints.
Yeah, now just to articulate that, so when you connect up to shell.azure.com, you're connected up to a container in the cloud, but you can get that exact same container and you can run it on your local desktop. And so then you've got Ansible, and you got Terraform, and you got Git, and you got all these tools and the latest version of those tools right there on your desktop. Use them in your local environment or connect up to the cloud. I mean, it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and I'll reiterate back on that component of the question as well. So yeah, the tools container is available on GitHub. We provide instructions on how to pull that down with Docker, deploy that locally, and as Jeffrey mentioned, you have all the most up-to-date tools. Where we update the tools is in that GitHub repository. So as soon as we make an update, you can pull that locally and have that up-to-date environment at your fingertips.
I know we're getting close to time
cool.
here.
Yeah.
I just want to add. Can I add 2 seconds here worth of commentary? It was brought up Terraform and Ansible and whatnot. And one of the things that customers fear when I deal with them from a Linux perspective is we're going to immediately go to PowerShell and tell them that's the way they need to go. And nothing against my esteemed PowerShell peers here, but we definitely want to try to augment with customers with the infrastructures they already have set up. So do not hesitate thinking about using Ansible or Terraform for not only the management of Linux or Windows virtual machines, but also the deployment of them. There is a massive amount of modules that have been created for Ansible in particular to extend the portfolio and provision different Azure resources. So
yeah,
please,
that's
please
absolutely right. There is no drama here. There's no again, who cares whether the cat is black or white as long as it catches the mouse? We're here to help you be successful. If being successful with Ansible is the way you want to do it, we're going to help you be successful with that, or Terraform, whatever. There's no, we're here to make you successful, not to push our technical agenda.
Exactly.
I want to thank everyone again for joining us. Unfortunately, we are at time. But I think it just really speaks to the sort of new spirit of Microsoft that collectively we can all be experts on this call together talking about PowerShell and Linux. So just really exciting times. We've got some resources here up on the screen. I highly encourage you to check out. We've also pasted lots and lots of good stuff in the Q&A. Feel free to reach out to us on Twitter. Via email, in the Ignite forums. We've got some for PowerShell and for Linux, and we're going to be answering questions all throughout the week. So please reach out to us, and just really want to thank you again for joining us and for joining us at Ignite. We're having a really great Ignite, and I can't wait to see you at the next one. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, folks.